Hello and welcome to the Transfers podcast, powered by FootballTransfers.com. A new podcast where we bring you news, insight and analysis on that most important of the least important things, football. I'm Duncan Castles and I'm joined this week by another in our rolling cast of Europe's finest football journalists. A trusted confidant of some of the game's best known players, a man who's broken news of multiple transfers, including Eden Hazard's ill-fated and record move from Chelsea to Real Madrid. I like to think of him as the Eddy Merckx of Belgian football journalism. Welcome to the Transfers podcast, Kristof Terreur.
Hello. Yeah, it's quite a huge thing to be compared to Eddy Merckx, to be fair. If you have somebody, you don't have a Belgian who's ever been bigger than Eddy Merckx, although my weight is not as high as that from Eddy Merckx, I think so. But I do like cycling a lot, and I do admire the big Eddy Merckx, to be fair.
I'll try not to refer to you as the cannibal during the podcast, but it might slip in at some point. We're going to talk about Kevin De Bruyne's future, managing Cristiano Ronaldo, centre-forward transfer chains, Manchester United's moves, how you go from relegating Burnley to coaching Bayern Munich, and a lot more. But let's start this week in North London, where we have news of Mikel Arteta's relentless pursuit of the Premier League title and his pursuit of relentless improvements of the Arsenal squad. We know they're in the market for a central midfielder in combination with the defender that they're just about to sign from Bologna, Riccardo Calafori. That deal agreed between the clubs and waiting on a medical. On the Transfers podcast, we can tell you that Arsenal have initiated discussions with Paris Saint-Germain for Spain international midfielder Fabian Ruiz. He is 28 years of age and under contract there until 2027. He's had a difficult time at Paris Saint-Germain. He's been there for 2 seasons, having joined from Napoli at the end of the summer window in 2022 for an initial 21.5 million euros. But neither of the coaches he's worked under at PSG have used him as a consistent first choice. For example, last season with Luis Enrique, he started just 21 of their Ligue 1 and Champions League matches, but followed that season up with one of the exceptional performances in the European Championship, in Spain's European Championship winning team. For many observers, perhaps the best player in that tournament, scoring twice, providing the final pass for 2 more goals. Importantly, I think for someone a Premier League club are looking at, he won more balls than anyone else at the tournament and won twice as many in the final third of the pitch as any other player. So you've got that pressing ability, which is fundamental to the way Arteta plays. He passes the ball accurately, he beats opponents one-on-one. In many ways, he looks like an obvious fit to that Arsenal system. The discussions are dependent, I'm told, on Arsenal moving a player out from midfield, and it's likely that if they are to come to an agreement with PSG on transfer fee, that it will be structured in the same way as the deal they used to bring David Raya from Brentford last summer, in the sense of it being a loan with an obligation to buy a year later. Kristof, what do you think of that move for Arsenal? Is that one of the pieces required to turn them into the team that can finally break up Manchester City's dominance of the Premier League?
We'll have to see that one, but I seem to remember that like 2 years ago, before Fabian Ruiz moved to PSG, that he was also already on the Arsenal's radar. I remember that. I remember even like one of the Italian journalists tweeting at that time that he didn't want to move to Arsenal, that he wanted PSG or Real Madrid at that point. But in a way, at that point, it was already reported that Arteta saw a little bit of potential replacement for Granit Xhaka in Luiz as a leader, but also as a player, basically. Maybe even better than Xhaka as a player. So I don't know if he will give them or hand them the title, but it will be an upgrade, I think, on what they have, or something different for their game plan. But I still feel they lack a bit of firepower in the squad. They haven't done all their transfers yet, but I'm not sure that with that attacking lineup that they will make a difference for a second consecutive season. So they might need a few more goals in their squad too, I think. So they should not be ready in the transfer market. They should add some firing power to the squad, I think, if they really want to upset the ones like Manchester City or even Liverpool, if they're performing this season. We'll have to see.
Well, Mikel Arteta in the United States in pre-season talking about what they need to do, and in his words, we need to upgrade everything we're doing and improve in every area, and that's what we're trying to do. And you identify an area where they are looking, an additional area where they're looking for an improvement, which is at centre forward. Other options for the midfield are also Spanish players, Real Sociedad's Mikel Merino and Martin Zubimendi. Since you brought up strikers, let's move on to the issue of strikers and the recruitment of centre forwards, which is often one of the more complicated areas of the transfer market, because we're talking about the highest ticket performers, and usually an area where you have one absolute defined choice in your team, who you want to get right. You, Kristof, have spent a lot of your time covering Romelu Lukaku's career. He, as has often been the case in these summer windows, is at the centre of discussions of a transfer. I think his aggregated transfer fees are now the second highest in the history of world football, after only Neymar. And he's an important part in this summer's chain. Can you explain where Lukaku is at the moment, how Chelsea are trying to move him on yet again, and what role that has in terms of strikers moving elsewhere in Europe? Well,
with Lukaku, it's basically like every summer you feel that there's a transfer soap going on, which will have its conclusion somewhere in August, where he has to wait, and where fans have to wait, and journalists are writing, and nothing is really moving. At the moment, Lukaku is still on holiday after his terrific Euros campaign. He's already training to be fit, to be fair, for his next club, and he knows what he wants, and what he wants is not a public secret anymore. Antonio Conte wants him at Napoli as a replacement for Victor Osimhen, but as we have all seen, Victor Osimhen, he has a release clause in his contract of somewhere amount between 120 and 130 million euros. But Napoli want that amount for him, but nobody's willing to pay it as yet. So Lukaku's basically waiting for Osimhen to move. At a certain point, Lukaku was also considered by Milan, or his name was put on a table by an agent, but they took Alvaro Morata from Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid are now looking for a new striker, but who are they going to take? Are they going to go for one of the PSG strikers, for Gonzalo Ramos, or for Kolomuani? Are they going to go for Girona's Ukrainian striker Dovrik? So that's not sure. So the merry-go-round is not really happening as yet. Morata has moved on, and that was the moment when you felt now it's going to start. But Morata has already signed for Milan more than 10 days ago, so it's not really moving.
Yeah, Morata moving to Milan when they used his release clause to sign him and putting him on a 4-year deal at 4.5 million euros net a season, which I'm told was actually a pay cut, which represents Morata's desire to move back to Italy. You mentioned Artem Dovbyk at Girona, signed for €7 million last season by the Spanish club. Also has a release clause in his contract, which Girona are referring to if Atletico want to take him. Another option for Atletico, Julian Alvarez of Manchester City, who would like to move, but who Manchester City are using their pretty standard tactic on players who express an interest in leaving, which is to say, yes, we're not going to stand in your way, but by the way, the transfer fee is so high that we don't think Atletico will be able to pay it. So yeah, you're right. That's very much open. You also mentioned Gonzalo Ramos and Randal Kolo Muani, who are both at PSG, and both play a role in this kind of magic roundabout of European football clubs centre forwards shifting homes, in that they were both signed by Paris Saint-Germain last season as part of that huge rebuild they went through ahead of their first season under Luis Enrique. Both requested by Luis Enrique, and then both sidelined by Luis Enrique during the season. And Enrique pushing Paris Saint-Germain to sign a new forward, which is likely to be, I think is the correct phrase to use here, not guaranteed, but likely to be Victor Osimhen. Osimhen, good, strong connections with Paris Saint-Germain through Luis Campos, their sports advisor, who signed him for Lille several seasons ago and then sold him to Napoli for an initial €70 million in 2020. Osimhen then developed into Serie A's top scorer with 31 in 39 games in Napoli's Scudetto winning season, which prompted Paris Saint-Germain last summer to make him their primary target for that centre-forward position. They offered, I'm told, €150 million last summer for the player. Napoli refused to sell, asking for 200 million. They've now got themselves in a situation where Osimhen, off the back of a much poorer season for Napoli in the last campaign, has that €130 million release clause that you mentioned, but nobody's willing to pay it. My guidance from the Italian end is that Napoli have dropped their asking price to 100 million. That is still too much for Paris Saint-Germain. I can add a bit of information here that Osimhen has met Paris Saint-Germain in the last few weeks for direct discussions about moving there, expressed his interest in coming, so that there has been that discussion over salary and whether he would come to the club, and it was emphasised to him by PSG that he would need to change his attitude, change his behaviour, and that they wouldn't be interested in bringing him if he was going to perform in the way they did in his last season in Italy. So I think you're right to underline that we need more movement here, and I think one of the keys in this move is going to be PSG offloading one of Gonzalo Ramos or Randal Kolo Muani. They want to emphasise that neither of the players for sale, but I think the reality of this is that they're both available should the right money come in for them. That would allow them to agree a fee with Napoli for Osimhen, and that should allow then Antonio Conte to get his wish and to be reunited with Lukaku once again. I think he's probably got a huge responsibility for pushing those aggregate fees up for Lukaku, the amount of times he's pursued him during his career, and that will clear some room for Chelsea to chase a striker of their own.
So yes, you have to see that Antonio Conte has basically made Lukaku's career, and maybe Chelsea could have already sold him to a Conte team in 2014 when Lukaku permanently moved to Everton, but Antonio Conte was already calling Lukaku back then until he resigned from Juventus. So Lukaku and Conte are basically a match made in heaven, and there even managers telling Lukaku that Conte is basically his second daddy, because Conte got Lukaku to Inter for 74 million euros, pushed him to his best level at Inter. Basically, Lukaku under Conte was sometimes unplayable, and that's why Chelsea decided to buy him back in for 113 million euros. So if you already count, that's almost, let's say 200 million euros that Conte is basically responsible for Lukaku's aggregate transfer fee. So, and now on top of it, there might be even 25 or 30 million euros, because Lukaku and Chelsea last year basically agreed that he could move on for a fixed fee this summer. That was during the talks when he pushed for a move, a loan move to AS Roma without an option to buy. So they had to give some guarantees. He had to get some guarantees. So they told him that he could leave for around 40 million euros.
And is it correct that Lukaku took a pay cut on his contract in order to secure that 40 million euro release clause last summer?
Well, that's never been confirmed by his side, but that was at the point the thing that Chelsea were pushing for, from take a pay cut from this year. So I don't think, I think the reported wage that Lukaku was earning in his Chelsea contract was around 20 million pounds gross a year. I don't think he has those wages anymore, that he signed another document that he's now there for less money, and that's why one of the things that was negotiated. But his side will never confirm that, of course. But he wants to keep on playing football, and he's been linked to Saudi as there was an offer last year from a Saudi Arabian club for 50 million euros. But I don't think any of those teams are looking for a striker right now, because
any of the top PIF
no, none of the top teams like Al Nassr have Ronaldo, Al Ittihad have Benzema, Al Hilal signed Mitrovic for big money last year, and Neymar. So there's no space for him, I think.
And very quickly, Kristof, why has Antonio Conte been able to get that level of performance out of Lukaku that was rarely on show at his other clubs? I mean, he had a period at Manchester United under Jose Mourinho and Rui Faria, who we interviewed in an earlier edition of this podcast, in which he performed at a high level, but there was never any sustained level of performance anywhere else that he played.
I think Lukaku always says, I need a hard hand. A manager really tells me that I'm basically useless and is on my back all of the time, continuously. And maybe that's what Conte has done. So Conte has always shown lots of confidence in him by talking to him, by getting him his moves, basically, by always being in touch with him. But he's been very hard for Lukaku, to putting him on hard diets. For instance, when he signed for Inter, he was basically, let's say, at 104 kilos. Conte immediately put him on a strict diet, in which he lost a lot of pounds and did a lot of hard training sessions. Like, Lukaku was really constantly shattered when Conte was training him. So he needs that hard hand, but also those hard training sessions to stay fit. And maybe that's not possible in a Premier League, where you have the continuously have games with a team that plays in Europe too. You're going from recovery session to recovery session, and Lukaku's body-wise needs those really hard cardio sessions. So that's what Conte noticed, and how he got the best out of Lukaku also by not playing him always in European games, but he put him on a strict diet and on hard training sessions, and that worked. And maybe that's the key, being hard for him and putting him on the right training sessions, and never let him ease off, basically constantly keep him sharp.
That's fascinating insight, Kristof. I'm also fascinated to hear your view on Lukaku's still current club, Chelsea. You've You've worked with the London club for over a decade, with your period living in London as a correspondent for one of the leading Belgian newspapers. You've seen the inside of Chelsea through the Roman Abramovich era. What's your view on this new Chelsea that Clearlake Capital and co-investors have brought in? Unprecedented spending, unprecedented squad size. I was just looking on the official website last night, and it lists 6 senior goalkeepers, 16 senior defenders, 11 senior midfielders, 13 senior forwards, for a total of 46 players. They've got, I think, 28 players on their pre-season tour, even though a lot of players are still on holiday, post-European Championship and Copa America, etc. They're now on to their third, in inverted commas, permanent managerial appointment of the new era. What do you think of this reorganisation of one of Europe's most prominent football clubs?
Yeah, it has been a strange one. At a certain point, I was thinking like I'm gonna compare them to a darts player who throws with a full hands of darts to the ball, basically to make sure one makes the right spot. Basically, it looks like they were just buying in bulk, investing in all of those talented players, investing far too much, overpaying for players that weren't yet worth it, weren't not ready. It seems that there was not a real, basically, football strategy when they appointed smart people. To be fair, people who had a good track record in football, but yeah, also they bought sporting directors in bulk. At a certain point, they had like 4 recruitment chefs. That doesn't work in football. You need one consistent line. I think it's what a lot of investors in football clubs, they make similar mistakes. To be fair, they go in the full blow and then they really see how it works. So it might come good because they have the money, but they have already who spent so much money that they now have a squad. The squad size they have is amazing, to be fair, and those players are well paid, and usually getting rid of players who are well paid is also a difficulty. How do you get money back for the players you don't want anymore? So they have put themselves into trouble, but it can still all come good. We're not sure because they have still smart people on board, but you have to let the people good people make the decisions themselves, and not as an owner and as a investors, not too much getting involved. I think not too hands-on. Let your people do the work. People who know the business, let them do the work. So even with them and managerial sign as it goes, there's no clear vision. Basically, you go from one to another, from Tuchel to Potter to then Pochettino. Then after a season, you see that Pochettino's not good enough. You go to a completely different manager again. So, it's a weird approach, to be fair.
Yeah, I think you made an interesting observation there about football strategy. Not having a football strategy, but definitely having a recruitment strategy. And I think your analogy of throwing multiple darts at the dartboard, I don't think that's too far off what the Clearlake kind of spread bet is. It's let's attack the market for young talents and get hold of as many of them as possible, in the expectation that some of them will turn into super valuable players, and we can make money on some of those super valuable players and have the benefit of having them in the squad for a while. I think there are big elements missing in that you actually have to have someone to sell to when you've developed these players into super valuable players. And if you start with the transfer fees that they've started with, so we just look at the midfield as a key example, and you have Enzo Fernandez on a record transfer fee of 21 million euros. Moise Caicedo with 100 million. guaranteed, rising to 115 million, which is another replaced that as the record transfer in the Premier League. And then on top of that, you have Romeo Lavia, signed last summer, in a direct fight with Liverpool. An interesting transaction in that Liverpool came in, thought they had control of the player, thought they had an agreement from the player that he wanted to join them, and made a series of low ball offers to Southampton around the £30 million mark. And then Al Ittihad came in with an offer of £60 million for Romeo Lavia, which forced both Liverpool and Chelsea to go up into the high 50s in their offers, and eventually lost Lavia to Chelsea because Lavia, as I understand it, had already agreed the financial terms with Chelsea. They then have three midfielders who we don't know yet if they combine properly in a midfield. I think a lot of outside experts would suggest they're not well matched to each other. But Lavia has made just one appearance for Chelsea since joining them. That's a substitute appearance, and I think succumbed to 3 separate injuries during the course of last season. Is that correct?
Yeah, he had 3, all in the same zone, but most of the injuries are just muscle injuries, like you could expect as an explosive player with some managers. If you get a higher workload and you get pushed, and at a certain point he went even on a recovery to Belgium with a famous Belgian physio, well-known physio, to do his work over there, recovery, that makes you feel that after relapse that you don't really trust medical staff of your own team anymore. But
which has been a recurring problem for Chelsea under this new regime, in that they cleared out basically the entire medical and physiotherapy staff in the first season, and lost the trust of several players off the back of that.
Yeah, so when he went with permission to do his last recovery in Belgium, it all went fine. He's now fit for pre-season, and you got to give it to Chelsea. Division they had, they signed Lavia last summer, knowing he would be injured for all season, and then they would get the coach he trust and worked with at Manchester City, and Enzo Maresca. So that's showing vision in my eyes. It will all come well with Lavia on the Maresca if he stays fit, of course, because from what I hear from other players, or Kevin De Bruyne told me at a certain point, what Vincent Kompany told about Lavia, they all seen him, they've trained with him, that he's one of the biggest Belgian talents. He would have been in the Euro squad if he had been fit. He was already close to being in the World Cup squad for Belgium in Qatar, but he got injured just before the tournament too. So those muscle injuries are in a way a worry already if you have them early in your career. But he's seen as Belgium's biggest talent, so we expect a lot from him. And under the way that Maresca plays, I see him develop in the maybe even do better than he did in his first season in the Premier League at Southampton, where he already surprised people with the way he was passing, running forward. He has everything to become a top player, but his body has to stay fit.
Well, that position, that number 6 position, is key in a Maresca system. It will be interesting to watch the development between the two, because we know that Chelsea are talking about bringing Maresca in as a coach who can develop players. I had a long conversation with a Champions League coach about Lavia during his first season at Southampton, and he was super impressed with Lavia's capabilities on the ball and going forward in the pitch, I think, as everyone is. But he noted that there's a lack of awareness of where the defence is, that he doesn't pay attention to where the rest of the team is behind him when playing, which is not unusual in a player of his age. He would have been 18, 19 at that stage, and is certainly something that can be coached. And it will be a a test of Maresca's coaching ability and see if that visionary signing, as you describe it, is one of the ones that work out for Chelsea this season.
Yeah, well, one of his biggest challenges will be squad management with that squad, with those stars all on big money. How did you keep them all happy if you have a squad of 32 or 33 players and you can't get rid of some of them? Yeah, squad management will be his biggest challenge, I think. Yeah.
Squad management, I think the structure of the squad is, in terms of the players within it, experience and age, is a real problem. Again, looking at the current squad, there's only 3 guys in there who've played more than 100 games for Chelsea. Ben Chilwell, Reece James, the captain, and Kepa Arrizabalaga, who they're trying to sell. And it's a huge experiment for a club of that stature.
Yeah. And
aiming to do what they're trying to do, to have a squad where there's really no older, experienced counterbalance in it. And
last year they only had like Thiago Silva as the really, really old guy of 38 years old. But I think only Raheem Sterling comes close to the 30s, and the rest is all middle that are under 25 years old. It's a big. Cucurella maybe it's also like 25, 26. Chilwell will be closer to the 30s too. But they're lacking experience basically. That's what you see, experience wise. Usually they are squads are quite well balanced with youngsters. If you saw like Real Madrid last season, they had some really old guys like Kroos and Modric and Nacho, but also very young guys, and that gives you balance. But Chelsea's completely the other end. Very, very young squad.
And now with a coach in charge who has only had 1 full season coaching a first team. So you've got a degree of inexperience, certainly at this level, in charge of that squad too. Let's move on to a very experienced player. Again, someone you've known well and followed throughout his career, Kevin De Bruyne. We had Pep Guardiola this week saying that Kevin will not be leaving Manchester City, but there is, I think, still the possibility that one of the Saudi Pro League clubs will put the money down with Manchester City that will convince them to sell one of the most important players in that long era of success at City.
Yeah, since the Saudi Pro League is around and spending lots of money, you can never say never. For players not leaving, you can't say that, because sometimes they just splash the cash. They've already signed a central midfielder, to be fair, with Hassan Aouar of AS Roma. So they already signed a midfield, but you can, if they get the opportunity to get a player like De Bruyne for the money they want to spend, they will push for it. I know that Saudi teams have been sniffing around already for 2 years, since basically Ronaldo moved over there. It's 1.5 years basically, and that Kevin De Bruyne knows what he can earn in Saudi. It will be around 70 million euros a year. That is open for a challenge like that. If the offer ever appears, he would do it. But no club has come to Manchester City as yet. And as long as you mentioned before, Manchester City work like they work. If there's an offer on the table and it's enough for them and a player wants to leave, a player can leave, but they just want the money they want. And I think Kevin De Bruyne will be an expensive one. Still at his age, he's now... He's just turned 33, has had a few bad injuries, to be fair. So he's at the end. His contract is running down next year. He's waiting for City to move and extend and make an offer, basically. As we all know, City's politics too. With players over 30, we've seen that with, for instance, Gundogan. They wait till the last season... last contract year to move to make an offer and to sit down. So De Bruyne is basically waiting for that. What he said during the Euros, he did a sit-down interview with me and a few others. He said, I'm just focusing on City right now, and I know I will be there next season. So that was already the guarantee from the offer hasn't been there. And he said, I know how City works. I know they will come to me at a certain point with a contract offer for the next year. And then we will see. If they make me an offer, I will see. So I think the chances are quite big that he's staying also. If you compare what Pep said about Ederson and about De Bruyne, then you know that there's an offer for Ederson, because as he said clearly, I don't know if he's staying about Ederson, who's been chased by Al Ittihad too. So you know there's an offer for De Bruyne. The offer hasn't been there yet from the club side. So we'll see if they ever make it. But I was told by somebody who's good insights on Saudi market. He said that it will be difficult for De Bruyne this summer. That it will be probably something for if they move for next summer, because he's then available on a free. If you look at the strategy they've done with the older players, with the big stars, Ronaldo, he didn't have a contract anymore. Benzema was out of contract. They tried to get Messi and Modric. Both of them were out of contract at that point too. So then they can offer them, those big stars, the big money. So we'll see. But De Bruyne is open for everything at the moment. It's also possible that if he gets an offer from the States next season, that he might consider that, because he's always been always been in love with the States, with the lifestyle over there. So we'll see. But there's also a possibility that he just finishes his career at Manchester City. That was his plan until just before the Saudi Pro League started to splash big cash. Then it was his plan, I will retire at Manchester City. And family-wise, lots of will depend on what his wife wants and what the kids want. Are the kids happy in Manchester? They're there. His oldest kid is now, I think, 7 or 8. Are we going to keep him in school over there? Are we going to move him to the States? Because they speak very good English, those kids. They come to school in English, so they've been basically English. So you have to find the right school for them too. Yeah, we'll see, but all is open for him, basically. But I don't see the Saudis making the move right now. I think it will be for next summer, if they ever make the move or get encouraged to make the move.
Waiting on Saudi Arabia is a theme of this transfer market. It's been a theme of European clubs in general since the Saudi Pro League started to put such unprecedented sums into bringing players from Europe to the Middle East. You mentioned Ederson there. As you said, Guardiola, talking about this yesterday, said, of course, I'd like him to stay, but it depends now on the clubs. He has been pursued by Al Nassr, who ultimately have chosen to replace David Ospina with another Brazilian goalkeeper, Bento, from Atletico Paranense this week. But as you say, Al Ittihad also interested, one of the few top Saudi clubs who don't have a big name international goalkeeper in their ranks. City's asking price is understood to be £50 million for Ederson, and the player unsettled by the amount of money that's being offered in Saudi Arabia. And by the end of the season, in which Stefan Ortega came on for him in a game against Tottenham Hotspur, made an incredible save, and people seem to forget that Ederson had been forced off in that match with quite a bad head injury inflicted on by Christian Romero, making a save from Romero and posting on social media after that match about no one understanding him. Obviously, Manchester City have to set up potential replacements, because they know that there is a scenario in which Ittihad or another Saudi club provide the transfer fee they're asking for, and they have to let Ederson go. Interestingly, Paris Saint-Germain believe that Gianluigi Donnarumma is Manchester City's first choice to replace Ederson. and they would be open to selling Donnarumma to City at the right price, and it will be a very high price. We use Sky Sports estimated transfer values on this podcast frequently, and they have Donnarumma at 61.5 million euros. PSG are in quite a strong position there in that they have already signed a new goalkeeper this summer. The first signing of the summer, the Russian international Matvei Safonov, for an initial 18 million euros from Krasnodar, who was seen as quite a surprise acquisition by many people, but I understand that PSG see him easily a potential first-team goalkeeper and potentially a better goalkeeper than Donnarumma when he's given the opportunity to play. Another goalkeeper that Ittihad are looking at is, and this would be a very different scale of acquisition, is Predrag Rajkovic, the Mallorca goalkeeper, Serbia international, 28-year-old, who is easily accessible because he has a 10 million euro release clause at Mallorca, and is attractive to Ittihad's Spanish sporting director Ramon Planes. Ultimately, that decision will not be made by the sporting director. It won't even be made by their new coach Laurent Blanc. Certainly Karim Benzema will have a significant degree of influence on it. I think if you look at Ittihad's acquisitions this summer, and the most recent one being Moussa Diaby from Aston Villa, the French winger, you can see that Ittihad are trying to placate Benzema after a very difficult season he experienced with Marcelo Gallardo in charge. And the reason Laurent Blanc is in there as coach is because Benzema wanted Blanc in of the options that were made available to him. But ultimately, it is PIF who have to approve all of these signings, so that whenever the club moves for a certain high-profile position, it gets referred back up the funding chain of command to Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, and they have to say whether that's appropriate for the league or not. What's your sense of how Saudi's investment in football has changed European football, Kristof?
Well, in my eyes, there's lots of clubs waiting for Saudi. They welcome Saudi money, but I think lots of agents just waiting for their players to get an offer from Saudi Arabia, even them going to Saudi Arabia, knock on the door, come here, I offer you this player, this player, this player. It seems because at a certain point, Arthur Theat, for instance, left back of the Belgian national team and centre back of him, was close to Al Ittihad. They even done his medicals, to be fair.
Okay.
And he would have been in a package with Stefano Pioli, the former AC Milan manager. He would become Al Ittihad's new manager. And then suddenly that deal collapsed too. So no Pioli, no Theat, because internally at Al Ittihad they said no way. But I think that also Saudi's plan, they first came for the stars, for Ronaldo, for Benzema. They're now looking more to younger players, like the range between 25 and 30, to more balance their teams. I think they're making their team stronger in a way. And I think after the season that the chief of the Saudi Pro League, their CEO, said that they were going to invest in youngsters too, in players between 18 and 21. So they are now having a football strategy too behind. First you get the stars, now a football strategy, like we're going to build strong teams for probably also for the Club World Cups that are coming on to prove themselves. So they're more balancing their teams, but of course, like if the Premier League doesn't spend the money, and we've seen with France where the TV contract is now only worth half of what it was since Mbappe and all the stars at PSG left. So they are struggling for money. So yeah, in football they're always following the money's path basically. So clubs will be hoping that Saudi will offer big money, but I think the biggest transfer has been only between brackets a 19 million euros move for Neymar, for a big star. They haven't spent like 200 or 300 million euros yet on players, and not sure they are going to do that yet. They're definitely looking to get players now. We've overpaid for some players. Now we're looking more to get value for our money. So you don't have to underestimate them business-wise. I think they're not going to make mistakes that others made. So let's see. But yeah, some players even speak openly about that. Even Lukaku said it before the World Cup that Saudi Arabia is changing the landscape in a way, like they did with golf, with Formula One, with cycling, with boxing, with all the sports that moved over there. That players are looking at it, and players are even considering going there, like even in their prime. That will be their next point. But I think their next mark will sign a good top player that's really in his prime, and we move him there. That will be their next statement, I think, like a talented player, 25 years old, that wants to move over there. But of course, Europe has only that one big thing still. That's the Champions League. I think that's what kids growing up on the continent dream of when they're kids. Champions League. But would that be the same in 10 years when everything has changed? Not sure. So the Saudis are really, they're changing the landscape basically. You have to always be aware of them, I think.
They have the financial firepower to change things. It's a question of the implementation. I think we've talked on previous podcasts about issues with the kind of decision-making process and the number of voices involved at each club and through the league complicating matters. But yes, I agree with you. If they start targeting and successfully recruiting younger players, we mentioned early in this podcast about the offer they made for Romeo Lavia last summer, then that changes the shape again. Let's talk about Manchester United and their strategy for using significant financial firepower provided by their new billionaire co-owner to turn them back into a club that can compete for that key competition you just mentioned, the Champions League. We've talked on previous podcasts about them identifying Manuel Ugarte, the Uruguay international, as a player to add a combative ball-winning element to the midfield. He has agreed personal terms with the club, but they are struggling to get a deal in place with Paris Saint-Germain on the transfer fee. My information is that Paris Saint-Germain are insisting on their 60 million euro asking price, are not open to negotiating downwards, and contrary to some recent reports, also haven't got involved in discussions that would involve a player or exchange or part exchange for Ugarte. There was a report this week that Jadon Sancho had discussions with Paris Saint-Germain on contractual terms to come in as a replacement for Kylian Mbappe, Mbappe's left wing position. My guidance is that Sancho, although he is on the recruitment list for that left wing position, he's one of the players they're looking at. There have been no conversations with Sancho about the deal, and they're very much still focused on other targets. First choice for the position, Kvicha Kvaratskhelia from Napoli, although that is a very difficult deal, as Napoli have been asking 200 million euros for the Georgia international. They are also looking within France at Désiré Doué, Stade Rennais' 19-year-old left winger. Again, the asking price on that incredibly high, 100 million euros for a player who also of interest to Bayern Munich and several Premier League clubs. Kristof, this week we saw Amadou Onana finally move from Everton to Aston Villa for a substantial fee. You can give us the details of that deal. I think some people are surprised that Manchester United haven't been looking at Onana as an option for that combative midfield role, given that he would seem an obvious alternative to Ugarte and someone clearly with proven Premier League calibre.
Well, they have always been in touch. He's always been on the radar, as we said, but they haven't made the move. And if you really want somebody as a club, you do everything to get him. So I think somebody at Manchester United wasn't really convinced he was the missing piece. I think somebody in the sporting the department or even the manager that saw that he wasn't the guy who would make them better as a team. His sister does his sister Melissa is his agent, and she's been often teasing followers on Instagram and on the social media of meetings with clubs which makes transfer news fans always eager to get news, makes them draw conclusions. He was for a certain period, he posted a picture that he was in London, close to the Emirates Stadium, to talk with Arsenal. She has similar several talks with Arsenal. He was an option, a name that's been on the table, but they never moved for him. He was in Barcelona to talk with Barca about them signing him. Barcelona never made the move because they didn't have the finances to buy him. I think for £50 million. That's what the deal is between Aston Villa and Everton is at the moment. Bayern Munich were interested. He was on the radar for a while, but they decided to move for João Palhinha of Fulham. So I think Onana was with the top clubs nowhere first option. So Chelsea already had 15 number sixes, so they couldn't add another one. Manchester City have Rodri, and if you have Rodri, he's the best at this position. Onana would never play. So, and the other big clubs from names in Europe don't have the finances to compete with the Premier League clubs. So he had only a limited options. And I think his sister even contacted Aston Villa that he would be open for moving there when Douglas Luiz moved to Juventus. She started the talks with Aston Villa. They were immediately interested, and Amadou had a really good chat with Unai Emery, and Emery basically convinced him with the sporting plan, with the things he could promise about playing time and being his six, number 8 along Kamara. I think that he will be on the midfield along Kamara. But as we also found out, Emery also was fond of for instance, Conor Gallagher of Chelsea. That was one of the other names that was mentioned in talks. So in the end, they went for Onana, and the negotiations at club level weren't that easy because Everton, as we all know, need money. They need a lot of money, so they got the maximum out of the deal, I think, with £50 million, including bonuses. So and Onana was keen to move after he talked with Unai Emery. And as I've noticed with last season when Yuri Tielemans, he was on a free transfer after his contract at Leicester run down. He was in demand too, but his chat with Unai Emery convinced him to choose for Aston Villa. So Emery must have something to convince at least Belgian players, to be fair. So maybe it's good for the Belgian national team having their two midfielders for the future in the same team, although not sure if Tielemans will play every single game at Aston Villa like last season, where he was first basically a sub and needed time to adapt to Emery's way of working, something that Onana might have to go through to to the way of working of Emery is quite tactically, quite specific. You need some time to adapt. So let's see if he proves to be worth 50 million pounds, because I think at the moment is he the most expensive transfer of the quiet summer window so far? I think so, with 50 million pounds. I don't think there will be a lot of players who have cost more than 50 million pounds.
The most expensive Premier League to Premier League club transfer. Do we know if Melissa actually had all these meetings with Barcelona and Arsenal? She wasn't trying to use the tactic of Jadon Philogene agent who had himself filmed in the car park at Barcelona and ended up being evicted by the security staff there.
No, but she had definitely had those meetings. But she went there. But yeah, it often agents have a lot of meetings with clubs. It's I think we sometimes underestimated how much they're talking to other clubs. You don't know if something's concrete until the offer has finally come. So Aston Villa were the only ones to make a firm offer at a certain point, and that says everything. As I have some contacts with in Munich for Bayern Munich, that was immediately said, we're going for Paulinho. He's already off target for 2 years. And if that deal doesn't go off, he might be an option. And then you feel they're not fully convinced as yet. Similar for what Arsenal, even at a certain point, denying that it was an option for them.
You mentioned Bayern Munich. We have to talk about Vincent Kompany and his surprise isn't the right word. It's not a sufficient word for it. Move from relegating Burnley to being the Bayern Munich manager in the space of a few days. You have great detail on what happened there. Tell the listeners to the Transfers podcast and how this came about.
Well, Kompany's name was also on the table from another club at a certain point. At Burnley, they didn't. Yes, some of the staff members will know it. Chelsea was already mentioned, so they knew that Chelsea were on the brink of sacking Pochettino, I think. So Chelsea were in touch. He'd already had a chat last year with Chelsea when they were looking for a replacement for after the season, and they finally got to Pochettino. Kompany already made a good impression on the Clear Lake people at that point. So he was a name that's been on the table, but in the end, that deal to Chelsea never materialized because Bayern Munich, after internal chats and having had like talks with 6 or 7 different managers, were at the bottom of the list, I think, and said, we might go for Vincent Kompany. Is the only one available still who plays the football that we would like to play or has the ideas. And he really convinced Bayern Munich in the 2 chats they had just after the season. On a Monday and a Tuesday, they had those meetings. And when it started popping up that Bayern Munich were interested, at first you say, huh? What's happening? And then you start talking to people, and then things started to add up also because Kompany has played in Germany, he speaks the language, he's been at a top club as a player, he has huge experience, he has an aura, he has good ideas. You can't say that Kompany has good ideas football-wise. He's proven that at Burnley in the Championship, but in the Premier League, maybe he was a bit too naive, and his recruitment wasn't that brilliant, to be fair. But Bayern Munich,
a bit too naive and maybe a bit too dogmatic in implementing those ideas.
They learn too, and Bayern have done their homework. They have called Pep Guardiola, and in his last season at Manchester City 2019, Kompany was often found in Pep's office. And they were just playing football, table tennis, exchanging ideas and stuff like that. So he has good ideas, and how football needs to be played. And maybe at Bayern Munich, he will have the players that can execute it. Not unlike at Burnley, where he just didn't have the players to play out the back. So he didn't adapt to what he had in the squad. So maybe at Bayern it will all come well with him, but it was definitely a surprising move in a way. You can fall upwards in life if you if you have a name as a football player. But if his name hadn't been Vincent Kompany and he hadn't played for 10 years at a high level at Manchester City, he would never had that job. I think it's choosing for name and ideas, I think. So and it's that Pep mark on him, that Pep brand, because he's worked on the Pep managers are quite popular. Xabi Alonso's worked on the Pep, and Mourinho is doing well. Arteta's doing well at Arsenal. So maybe it's just that we all want a Pep kind of manager. And I already saw that the German media were branding him the anti-Tuchel because he's charismatic. He's open. He gives them the lines that they want in the press conference. He isn't going for fights like Tuchel used to do with Uli Hoeneß and others. Vincent Kompany, in a way, is a good politician. So he knows in what club he is and how he deals with the media and with the players. But we still have to wait until all his internationals are back, and also how he's going to do basically the management of a top squad with big egos. He hasn't had those egos in his dressing room either. He's had them as a captain of Manchester City, but that's something that he will have to experience that at Bayern Munich. But as I said at the point when he signed for Bayern Munich, it's difficult. It's difficult not to do better than your predecessor, because Tuchel didn't win any cup and finished third in the league. You just have to finish second and win the German Cup to do better than your predecessor. So it's an easy job with Bayern Munich, to be fair, in the German league. So let's see if he gets them playing good football. He won his first friendly 14-1 against a really, really low tier that doesn't say anything at all, that result. But I saw that players already saying that they're playing more aggressive now. Also saw that in clips that Bayern Munich was spreading on social media, and the Kompany is really hands-on, like involved with defenders, how they have to defend, how they have to be aggressive. And that's basically, he wants his teams to play like he was as a player. Like, he had flair, but he was also very aggressive in a way, and he wants to see that from his players. So it might work with Bayern Munich. Let's see. And maybe, sometimes not the guy with the biggest CV or the most trophies is the best candidate, but a guy that fits in what you want to achieve. And like the people at Bayern Munich, like, they have changed their whole structure. They got people in from Leipzig, like Freund, and from the Red Bull school. The Red Bull school, they were really fond of Kompany's ideals already, in a way, when he was managing Anderlecht. The way he tried to play with the pressing, with playing out from the back, that fitted their philosophy. So let's see if it works for Bayern Munich with Harry Kane as a striker.
You touch on one of the more recent themes of European football club communication, in that in social media highlighting new managerial appointments or new coaching appointments, activities on the training ground. We've seen lots of Enzo Maresca videos and lots of let's just say pushing the agenda that they've made this inspired coaching appointment is going to turn everything around for the club. On that theme, let's talk about Roberto Martinez and Portugal and Cristiano Ronaldo. Roberto Martinez was brought into a Portugal national team who felt they had a serious chance of winning the last European Championship and have a serious chance of winning the next World Cup, given the depth of talent they have and the spread of that talent around their squad these days. He ended up allowing Cristiano Ronaldo to play almost every minute of that tournament. He was the only Portuguese player to play all 5 matches at the Euros, outfield player. Only the goalkeeper Diogo Costa played more minutes than the 39-year-old in the tournament. We know the statistics: 23 shots at goals, no goals scored, 1 assist. Was it a surprise to you that Martinez didn't take the decision which most people suggested that he should do ahead of this tournament, which was to use Cristiano Ronaldo sparingly and to distribute his minutes to the most effective points of the tournament in order to get the best result for the squad and for the team.
Well, to be fair, people who have followed the Belgian national team for the 6 years that Martinez was the national manager, it isn't surprise that he sticks to the star players basically, and that he keeps on giving them minutes, hoping that something will go. It reminded me a bit of how he kept Eden Hazard in the team with Belgium, when everybody already saw this is not the Eden Hazard of 3 years ago anymore, when he's shown at the World Cup in Qatar. You saw that this player doesn't have the level anymore that he used to have through injuries, but Martinez kept on sticking to him and playing him, and it's just loyalty. He's loyal to the older guard. We basically under Belgium, under Martinez, didn't change a lot. He kept the same core of players and kept on building him, hoping that he would get that last bit of quality out of them. I think he hoped the same with Ronaldo. You can't deny that Ronaldo's been one of the best players in the world for more than a decade, and he hoped that he was just hoping for him to score a few goals, I think. And I think Martinez is what the Belgian players liked about him was that how he managed their egos. Like, he gave stars a bit of privileges. Sometimes what stars like, they didn't have to train all the time. Sometimes when a player had a little injury, he could skip it at the second qualification game. He would say, you can go back to your club, have a recovery. Or sometimes he would say, we're not training today. We have a fair, you can go and see your family. So he was really good in handling those stars and keep them happy and not getting, you know how players are in the national team. Once they get annoyed by things, you don't get the results anymore. So he never annoyed the Belgian players in those 6 years. Only at the last tournament, Kevin De Bruyne before the tournament already saw what was coming, I think, with Belgium not having the quality anymore, not having the tactical plans to do it on the tournament. He's got annoyed and exploded. He exploded in the first game at the tournament in Qatar, and then it all badly went wrong. So he lost a bit of confidence in Martinez at that point, and you saw the effect. But he just sticks to the big egos and the big guys and does everything to keep them happy in the hope that they deliver for him. And sadly for him, Ronaldo hasn't delivered, but Ronaldo will probably never say a bad word about Martinez because, he managed him like he wants. We all know that Ronaldo doesn't like to be subbed or doesn't like to be on the bench. I think he was just hoping that by playing a lot of games, by the accumulation of games, he would get better and find his feet again. But he never found them.
It'll be fascinating to see if Cristiano Ronaldo does say a bad word about Roberto Martinez, because there was certainly briefing from people close to him that one of the reasons or the central reason why he didn't perform in the tournament was because the system didn't suit him and the team hadn't been set up in the correct way to deliver. But
let's see if he says it on the record.
He'll be a brave man to do it now, because I think if a new coach comes in, his position in the team will be on the line ahead of that World Cup.
We were jokingly saying in Belgium that he would take Ronaldo to the World Cup in 26 too. So anyway, his place is guaranteed still. So Cristiano Ronaldo can go on, doesn't have to retire. If Martinez stays on as a manager, he will be in the squad with Pepe, I think, both of them.
Let's finish the pod with a hero and villain section. Kristof, I'll let you choose either a hero of the week, if you have one, or a hero of the summer, since there hasn't really been that much football this
Well,
past
I
week.
wanted to say the anti-hero of the week. That's been definitely Enzo Fernandez, who's been in a huge scandal after singing a specific song after Argentina won the Copa America. But if I want a real hero of the summer, I will mention Dani Carvajal. Which player can say that he's topping the list of most European Cup final wins and has just won a Euro? So for me, he's the main candidate for Ballon d'Or because he scored an important goal in the final and he was very important for Spain too. So Ballon d'Or, Dani Carvajal, or Rodri, one of the two. But Dani Carvajal is, for me, the hero of the summer because even people in football like to measure everything with trophies. A manager, he's only good if he's won this or that. But if you want a successful career and you want to win a lot of trophies, maybe being a decent right back is your best bet because that are the players that aren't often sold for a lot of money. You can stay if you're a right back in a top club. Look at Gary Neville. He's won everything, staying in the same club for years. Dani Carvajal has done even more than Gary Neville at Manchester United back in the day. But as a decent right back, you can have a brilliant career and have a huge prize cabinet. Like, for instance, Dani Alves. He was, before Messi won really everything, he was the most decorated player in the world. Also right back. I think Jamie Carragher once said nobody grows up to be a right back. But if I would advise parents who are listening to this pod, maybe you should, if your kid wants to be a right back, let him be a right back because he can win a lot of trophies.
I was going to choose Argentina's populist president, Javier Milei, for sacking the country's Undersecretary of Sport after he suggested that Lionel Messi should apologise for those racist chants that Enzo Fernandez broadcast to the world that you were mentioning earlier. But then we had yesterday's Olympic football tournament match between Argentina and Morocco, in which they managed to have 15 minutes of added time signalled in the second half, which allowed Argentina to equalise in the 16th minute of added time. The match was then suspended due to a pitch invasion. The players then returned an hour and 55 minutes later to play a further 3 minutes of football that the Swedish referee Glenn Nyberg had decided needed to be added on top of the minute he'd added to the 15 minutes for the normal game. And he got back on the pitch, and the first thing he did was signalled for a VAR review, went to the monitor and declared Argentina's equaliser offside, which I think is just a great summation of where the organisation of football is these days. So villains of the week, combination of the Olympic Organising Committee and FIFA for getting us into matches like that so deep into a season which just goes on and on and on.
At least we have something to talk about and to discuss and to laugh at and to be annoyed with. At least they give us content. That's important. Like we should praise FIFA and the Olympic Committee and the Argentines for giving us things to talk about. It is not just one boring pre-season thing. So
all hail Gianni Infantino.
Yes, that's what he wants to hear.
Kristof, thank you so much for joining us on the Transfers podcast. It was an education and a delight.
Yes, and you didn't call me a cannibal, or you didn't compare you with Eddie Meggs anymore, so credit to you.
Okay, thank you, Kristof, and enjoy your lunch. You've been listening to the Transfers podcast powered by FootballTransfers.com. If you liked what you heard, please follow us on your favourite podcast platform and turn on automatic downloads to get the latest episode as soon as it's released. If you really like the Transfers podcast, please lend us just a bit more of your time by rating or reviewing the pod. Your support helps build a bigger audience. We're now over 10,000 listeners per episode. Thank you for that. And bring you more news, analysis and insight. You can also follow and message us on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube at Transfers Podcast. And you can follow us on Twitter at TransfersCast. Kristof the Cannibal is on Twitter at Kristof Terreur. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Duncan Castles. We now have a WhatsApp channel. Search for the Transfers Podcast on WhatsApp or follow the link in the show notes. Our music and production is by Mark Caulfield at Pro Podcast Production. We'll be back next week. Stay safe, be well, and thank you for listening.